Guys, what's up? Let's see if everybody hears us. We're on, we're live.
I hear you.
No, yeah, but do you see the live button? That's the question.
I see live and it's red. I don't know if that's good though.
I don't know. Yeah, okay, we're live. That's good. The thing is, there's like a lag between the time that when we start speaking and by the time it actually goes and starts broadcasting. I guess it's a feature for buffering that Google has. Maybe it's like the stuff they have on American TV, so one of us won't start showing our tits or something.
Yeah, you can start.
Okay. So, my name is Joniversity. I'm not sure how many people watching this webcast know me, and how many people here know Corey Gil-Shuster. Too many names, man. Too many names.
Sorry.
You're practicing.
It could have been worse.
Italian.
If my ex's father wasn't so racist, it would have been Joniversity. His original name was Jamili, so I could have been Corey Joniversity.
Jamili.
I still want to change my name to that. I think that would be kind of fun to watch people struggle with the name.
It's almost as bad as Barack Hussein Obama.
Exactly. That's why I love
it. Okay, so let's see. We'll actually go and start. And what we'll do is we're going to go with the questions.
Sure.
So we're going to have basically you can say it's 3.5 different sections. Background, which is just a little bit about you. Motives, which I think is one of the most important parts of this entire video. And what interests me the most, and I guess a lot of other people. Then we're going to have some general questions, and the general questions are just things that interest me mostly with the actual production side of things. Not just production, but going into experiences you had and stuff like that. And then we'll go to actual questions. Now, what I try to do with actual questions is go through your videos, which you have like 1 or 2 of, and try to bundle them and squash a number of questions into one. Because what I've noticed is that most questions have some sort of theme to them, right? So you can basically squash them into a single question, which should encompass the whole idea, right? The flavor of what the guy asking the question actually meant to either know or show the world.
Exactly.
Okay.
You caught on quick.
So background, name, age, and place of birth.
Corey Gil-Shuster, I'm 46, born in Ottawa, Canada. I lived there most of my life. And I've been in Israel for about, well, a lot of them went off since 1989, but I'd say probably 16 years, 17 years, I should count. That's all of it is, as a Canadian, we observe everything. We absorb. We tend to sit in the corner and just watch people and not take part. So my role in life tends to be the observer. So I thought I would turn that into something that the rest of the world can come with me on the journey of learning about Israeli and Palestinian society. That's sort of the very short version.
Okay. Atheist or believer?
Oh, atheist. Atheist completely. When I was 13, because as a Jew, at 13 you become a man. So I had all this pressure that I had to fast for Yom Kippur. And I did it up until like an hour before the end of the fast. And then I ate a chocolate bar because I was this fat kid. I couldn't help myself. And nothing happened. So, no, but that was my sort of, that's, my joke about it. But no, I never really believed. I don't think even my parents really believed. My grandparents were all very religious, and I think they, came from the old world, and so it was, a mix of traditions and belief that kind of came together to form a community. My parents kept on with that community, and I actually believe in that community to this day, but as a believer, not at all. I mean, I see so many holes in belief systems that rivers run through them, so no.
Yeah. It's actually a very interesting experience because I have the same. So my mom might have been a bit of a believer. My dad sort of went on and off depending on how his gambling went.
Yeah.
But what was interesting, growing up in, let's say, an Anglo-Saxon household here in Israel, was that although we weren't real believers, like, you know, we didn't observe anything really, but on Saturday we used to go to the shul, right? So it was like a reform.
Here in Israel?
Yeah.
Wow,
because
okay. That's different.
Well, we have, there are a few cities in Israel which are sort of hubs for people that came from England, South Africa, Canada, the United States, and all the English-speaking countries. And of course, we tend to sort of cling to each other because we have such a superior culture to almost everyone else.
Of course.
Especially the French. But in any case, and brown people in general too, obviously. I mean, you know. But in any case, so we used to go to synagogue on Saturday. But the thing is, you know, everybody got there by car and left by car. So it's like, yeah, I think tradition is. Then again, we are the tribe, right? This is how we refer to ourselves in the diaspora, simply the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So
the reason I said, just to clarify why that's different, I find people mostly, when people grow up in places like Jerusalem, as you said, certain cities have these small communities of Anglos who take some of the traditions that they had outside of Israel and they transplant them to Israel. My entire experience in Israel was with native Israelis and actually from the Mizrahi side, from the eastern side. So Jews who came from Arab lands had been here generations, but you know, still. So all my knowledge of how Israelis think is sort of based in that Mizrahi mindset of mixture of both traditional, yet they never went to synagogue, or very rarely went to synagogue. Or, you know, that would be just preposterous. You don't do that. Or some of them did, but very few of them. But yet they still kept on other traditions, which which were totally foreign to me. So anyways, go on.
Okay. Liberal or conservative?
In what sense? Like socially liberal, generally liberal.
Oh yeah, socially.
Oh yeah, liberal. Yeah, whatever. You want to marry 15 people? Go ahead. It's okay by me. Don't care. I have no issue. Well, I have certain red lines that I think you don't do violence to people. You don't hurt people. I mean, physically. And when it comes to children, I actually I'm extra protective. Meaning, so you marry 15 people. My thought would be, okay, is it a healthy environment for children? It likely is, because the more parents you have for children, kind of the better. But my only sort of area where I'm protective is about children and the rights of children and that they're raised properly. That's kind of my thing. But other than that, I'm very liberal.
Well, so just a second to clarify, going back to atheist versus believer. For instance, this is something that we have, I would say, a problem with in Israel, something that we have a problem with in Britain, certainly, and to a somewhat lesser extent, but still a problem in the States too, religious schools. So would you, as a liberal, sort of say, well, I'm a liberal, but you can't go sending your kids to religious school or whatever?
I went to religious schools as a child. I was sent by my very, very liberal parents to religious schools because in Ottawa, there's a very small Jewish community, and there at the time really was only one school and one mainstream option, and they felt it was important for me to have a sense of community by going to a school where we had to pray. We got to school, we had to pray. It was about half an hour of prayers every morning. And we learned Torah and Chumash, everything involved with and all the holidays. I personally hated it. Hated it. It convinced me how ridiculous religion is, and all the contradictions. As you're praying to God, thanking Him for being alive, and you're being yelled at by the religious guy in the background because you're not praying hard enough, you're not praying the right way, or you're giggling, or you're not wearing your kippah. Me personally, no, I do not take my son to anything very religious, although I think he should be exposed to these things because they exist, and actually quite, come from families or religious. My ex, his family, they're not religious, but they're quite traditional, and some of the family members, extended family members, are kind of religious. He shouldn't understand what that's all about. He can make his own choices.
Okay, so let's take it to a bit of a more extreme. How about religious studies like we have with Haredi Jews in Israel, where you don't learn anything other than, you don't even learn the Torah, really. You learn the Talmud, which is a completely different thing. You actually have a pretty interesting video about that. Which,
well, it's not my world. I mean, I don't, even though I went to a religious school, you still only get a very light sprinkling of education of what all that means. Yeah. So there are issues that people, or there are things in the Talmud that people will make claims about, mostly the people who hate Jews, sort of picking on one line out of 60,000 pages, and say, aha, Jews are pedophiles, because it will say something about being able to marry a 3-year-old, or I still don't know what that's all about. But most of these things were absolutely new to me. So I said, okay, I'll go investigate. Let's find out what this is. Is it absolute bullshit, or meaning completely made up, or actually is it there, and is there an explanation? So that's what I started to do. I should do more, including the one about pedophilia. I didn't actually ask that one yet. It turns out that a lot of what's out there is absolute bullshit. There's a lot of people just making claims that it's just nonsense. There's other things that are, the 10% truth. I have this theory about how in conflict, 10% of what you hear is true. The other 90% is exaggeration, hyperbole, nonsense, could be completely made up. And sometimes to figure out what that 10% is a lot of hard work. So meaning people will make a claim, and then if you really think about it really, really hard, you find out that, there is a certain element of truth to it, but they've covered in so many layers of nonsense and exaggeration that to the person hearing it, who's the person they're claiming it about, it makes no sense. So partially what I'm doing in my job is to sort of dig through and then try to explain, okay, what is that 10% and what is the 90%?
So here's something that, so I obviously know a lot of the things that they say about the Talmud, but for instance, on my channel, I decided not to defend the Talmud because I said to myself, okay, I'm an atheist and I'm taking it as my responsibility not to defend religion, even when it is defamed. Well, at least to a certain extent. I mean, it can go into blood libels, like we see every now and then. Like, the rules for preparing a matzah is to take some blood either from a Christian virgin or from any given random Palestinian.
Virgin too. I haven't heard the virgin one. Okay, that's new. Okay, good. Go ahead.
Oh no! Now we have Palestinians. Palestinians is a very common source for blood. In case you didn't know, that's at least according to Turkish TV. They had this whole series about the
minds of people who create this stuff. Wow. Okay. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, hate and xenophobia have always been a very fertile bed for blood libels. It's almost like, teenagers are a very fertile bed for imaginary stories of pussy conquest. So it's
Okay.
I have no idea how I managed to conflate the two,
You
but
got some pussy in there. Okay, no problem.
okay.
Well, so no, I don't think I'm defending, or at least I don't mean to. I'm not here to defend. Well, first of all, most of my videos have nothing to do with religion, and I don't want them to have anything to do with religion, truthfully, because it's just not my interest.
Although,
Although most of the questions I get are about why the Jews are not Christians. Actually, that's a huge amount.
yeah,
And I just ignored them. No offense. I mean, no offense to Christians or to Jews. I mean, I don't care. That's just not my interest, right? So I have to be. I really, when you get to why do I choose certain questions over others, part of it is I have to be interested in the question. But at a certain point, you start to see everyone talk. people sending me emails about why isn't Jesus the Messiah? Why isn't I get tons of them. So at a certain point, I said, fine, I'll do it. Turned out to be a good thing. I got a lot of hits on it. I didn't expect that, but great. And it's not and I don't want to defend the Talmud or Talmud-believing Jews or Jews who don't believe in Jesus or Jews who do believe in Jesus. This is not my area. But when I'm in it, if I'm going to Mea Shearim to ask anti-Zionist Jews why they're anti-Zionist, or I ask why don't you believe, or what's in these things in the Talmud, they believed, are they not, are they true? I'm going to react like any, my Canadian humanist person that I am, that if somebody says something obnoxious, I'm going to go, what are you talking about? What the hell is that all about? And I try not to be really emotional about it. I'm still a human being. It comes out, like going, what the hell is that all about? And I will give them a chance to react and to explain, and maybe it'll make some sense. And oftentimes it doesn't, because it's religion. What are you going to do? Religion makes no sense.
okay. So, just for instance, in that case, in the case of I'll just mention. I don't know if you noticed. I hope you did, and I hope you go through the analytics of your videos. But your most popular videos are the ones exactly about religion.
Yes, I did not expect it. Totally not expected.
Jesus, what do you think about
Yeah.
whatever imaginary friend?
Exactly.
And so, but I'll say this. So in the Talmud video specifically, which I'll just say was mirrored by someone who was trying to expose Talmud.
Yeah. Evil Jews, we know. We heard it all. Yes,
Yeah,
go on.
yeah. So in there, what I've noticed is that after you spoke to, let's say, somewhat more extreme Haredi Jews, they weren't actually the most extreme. I spoke to way more extreme Jews than that.
Could be. I just wandered down a road and saw some guy sitting there, or a couple of guys, and very quickly it turned into a crowd because I was asking questions, and that was it.
And
I don't know who these people are. I don't know if they're experts. That's not. Every so often I do try to find an expert if it's something I think really an expert should weigh in on. But it has to do with the Talmud. I don't even know who the experts are, truthfully. So, and that's not what this is all about. So if you are going to criticize the fact that there's not expertise, and people do. People get really mad at me. You aren't putting experts on. Why aren't you doing this? Go make your own video, experts on the Talmud, please. I will watch them, no problem. That's just not what I do.
But then you did end up interviewing a guy who is, I know these types of Jewish rabbis. You went to speak to what is called, I don't know if you know, in Haredi circles, known as chutznik, okay, someone coming from abroad, which are known to be less extreme. And it is something to do with the fact that they do get better education than Haredi Jews in Israel, which are basically have their brains corrupted, totally corrupted. Not as bad as Islamic studies in Israel, but it will eventually get there. But in any case, you know what? So you did end up asking that guy the questions, and
You're right. I forgot
and he was way more moderate, and you did spend way more time with him than you did with the other guys. Which brings me to a question, and I'm sort of skipping ahead, but it does bring me to a question. Do you feel that your biases sometimes creep into the videos? And when I mean biases, I know that when you ask, for instance, well, here's a nice example. When you ask the questions, every now and then the questions tend to be just a bit vague for someone who isn't, aware of the whole political background and intricacies and everything. But maybe you do tend to ask certain people questions, like you don't really randomize people, or maybe when you interpret or try to explain the question, you're sort of somehow. Now, I don't mean that it's with some sort of malicious intent there, but did you ever feel, and again, I'm skipping ahead here, but did you ever feel that your biases, and now we know that you're an atheist, and we know that you tend to be more liberal, at least in most cases.
It's been exposed, yeah. Go on.
So, do you think you, and we'll go into liberal, do you think your biases somehow influence the videos in some sense, in some way?
So there's a bunch of stuff in there. The short answer is, of course, absolutely. How could anyone, I don't care who you are, interview a person, or, I mean, from the beginning, meaning the questions that I choose, and I choose them on purpose, and sometimes I have to rephrase them based on, not because I want them to be different, it's because I know Israelis and Palestinians are not going to understand what I'm even asking. For example, one of the questions I had got was, how does it phrase? Anyways, the phrase was used, does that give you the moral high ground? Now, to anyone listening in English, they understand the concept of the moral high ground.
Yeah.
In Arabic and in Hebrew, that does not be translated. It does not translate. There's no way to explain it. Yeah. I would have to have a 20-minute conversation with each person. So I had to change the question in a way that made some sense to them. So the person asking, because what I try to keep in mind is the person asking is asking for a particular reason. Usually, as you said, they're gotcha questions. They want to expose something. They think they're onto something, right? So fine, not a problem. I'll go with it. I don't mind that. So I have to change sometimes the questions a bit. I have to choose the questions. They have to be something I am not going to get bored with asking. So asking about religion doesn't interest me very much, no offense, but it just doesn't. So sometimes I'll find an element of it that does. So yes, there is that. And then when they're answering, of course, well, actually, I should split it into two. On the one hand, of course, sometimes my own views come through, absolutely. And I say that, and I won't do it any other way. If people go, oh, no, you have to be completely objective. First of all, there's no way to be completely objective, because listening to someone who says, we want all the Jews to be put in the oven and killed in Auschwitz, which I was told, it's a little hard to take. I'm sorry. Like, really, I'm not going to react? Come on. But besides that, I actually try to keep as if I'm channeling the person who's asking the question. I really do. Or if it's not the person asking the question, because sometimes I forget, I don't have a great memory, who asked and why, and I try to get some background why they're asking. I'll think of someone will flash in my mind, someone I know, like let's say you, for example, and I'll think, well, what would Johnny say to this? Or what would someone else I know who's very left or very right or very moderate, or if I was the average Canadian sitting in in my Starbucks in Toronto, what would they ask as a follow-up question? And I'll try to just channel that. It's not even so much, and usually it's not because I think it. I think someone mainstream out there will think it. And why not? Why not try it? Because the more I ask and the more I challenge, I think people always say, why do you even challenge them? They have a right to their opinion. Of course they have a right to an opinion. Even if it's gassing all the Jews, yes, they have a right to their opinion. I want to see how far that goes and how deep that is and how much they think that. So I'll ask a follow-up question, and oftentimes I'll get a contradictory answer from the follow-up question, which I always find interesting. So someone will say, I'll ask a Palestinian, would you compromise? I have a video coming out very soon about this. Would you compromise for peace with Israel? And they'll say, no, absolutely not, not at all, not at all. And then I'll give them an example of a compromise. And they'll say, oh yeah, that I would do. And I'll say, but you just told me you would never compromise in a million years. So the reason I do it is to see if I'm going to get in from more information. What I don't, where there isn't bias, I swear to God, is in asking people. I have no, I mean, I can look at someone and kind of see if they're right or left in Israel. Palestine, I have no idea. Really, no clue. Really.
Okay.
Every time I'm like surprised by an answer, whether it's good or bad. Every time.
And what about
I have no idea how to read people.
I'm going to stop you.
People. Religious people too always surprise me.
I'm going to stop.
I have no idea what I'm going to do. Go ahead.
I'm going to stop you and ask you now. You do have people with you, and again, I'm unfortunately, you know, every time that you try to sort of frame questions under some sort of umbrella, they bleed into each other. But I will ask you. So you have people going with you, especially in Judea and Samaria. So maybe their biases somehow influence the people that you.
Could be. I mean, yeah, and I could see it. Sometimes they are really looking, and Palestinians out there, they really are looking for educated people, because a lot of times they'll be like, no, they're too like uneducated. They're too this or too that. Like when and then I'll insist, and it depends on the video, true. So for example, if I went to a university and I asked already 6 people the same question who are all educated, I'm going to want, because there's a big thing in Palestine about educated versus uneducated, whatever. I'm going to go find a shopkeeper or a person who is a farmer on purpose. Then I'll say, let's go find that, because showing only what certain people in one area or certain people with one education level think is not going to give us as much information as possible. And I know everyone's going to say, but how even asking only 8 people, how does that, it gives you a sense. It gives you a sense. If you watch a bunch of the videos, it gives you a sense of who the different groups are. But I could be being played in that sense.
I'm going to stop you again because I have a question about that, and because I don't want to go overboard with time too much, so I'm going to try to skip through. When I was talking about liberal versus conservative, unfortunately, for some reason, all the liberal versus conservative questions sort of have the United States setting the acid test for what is a liberal and what is a conservative. So just to get a better framing of where you are on the spectrum, abortion.
How did I know you were going to go there? Yeah, go on. What's my stand?
Now, it's not for or against. I mean, okay, even in the United States, and you know, I do have a lot of friends in America, and as you probably can imagine, I do have a lot of conservative friends in America, because my views tend to somewhat, again, tend to bleed into conservative right and liberal left. It's all a mishmash. So when I'm talking about abortions, I'm not talking about women who were raped, and I'm not talking about women that need to go through abortion due to medical reasons. I'm talking about the actual pro-choice at its most pristine sense of the word. Choice, pure choice. I had sex with Johnny because he's so amazingly attractive, but I don't want his babies because I don't want to impose on the world, you know, this genius brain of his, you know, again, so only one can exist.
I hate talking about politics, and this is why I hate politics. In terms of wings are for birds. It drives me crazy, conservative, liberal, whatever. But on the one hand, I can't get pregnant, but if I could, I would never have an abortion at any stage, other than maybe rape or incest or something. Yeah, that's pretty dark. But I would never. I really wouldn't. I believe that life is life, and that's it. However, I have a lot of friends who have had abortions, a lot, and family members, through other, not my immediate family, other people.
Yeah.
And I don't judge them. I really don't. I think I feel sad because I think children are amazing, and I love kids, and I feel a bit sad for people who don't feel that they can have kids. But that's about it. So that's as far as it goes. I won't judge them past that. That's it.
Okay. So you are.
I don't know what that tells you exactly.
So you are in fact pro-choice. This is what
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Now, I knew a woman, I have to say, who used abortion as birth control, and she said it proudly. I mean, she was 20, she was an idiot. And I told her she's an idiot. She's a complete idiot. Someone should tell her she's an idiot. You don't use, that's just a ridiculous way of dealing with your life. But, you know, she was 20 and stupid. But yeah, of course. I still think she has to have a right over her body. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so another question, and a lot of people will assume the answer if they know you a little bit more personally. A lot of people will assume the answer. Another great divide, sort of, is gay marriage. But I want to clarify.
I was gaily married already, so I'm soon to be gaily divorced. So yeah.
Oh.
And hopefully with the Abanut. So I can't wait. In Israel, just to fill people in Israel, I was married to a man. We're married. We're separated. We haven't been divorced yet. Because we're legally married in Israel, at least to a certain point, I heard it's changed, but you had to go through the rabbis of Israel because that was the system to be divorced, even as a gay couple. And I think that's just hilarious. I think that I will bring a crowd of people and film the entire thing of that making making Orthodox rabbis divorce me and my same-sex ex. I think that's a scandal.
Well, I'll just clarify two things. First of all, it's only if both sides are Jewish.
We are.
Second of all, what's that?
We are. We're both Jewish.
Okay. Second of all, this is actually basically what happened. A lot of the laws in Israel, because we were occupied first by Muslims, specifically by the Ottoman Empire, and then by the Brits, a lot of our laws in the law book are things that we inherited from those two systems, which is okay. It happens all around the world with nations that were occupied. So this is basically a law that is inherited from the Millet law from the Ottoman Empire, which says that marriage can only be religious. There is no civilian notion of being married. And this is why in Israel a Muslim can only be married within...
Can only get married in Israel to a fellow Muslim. They can. Exactly. Any of us can leave the country and get married to whoever we want.
Yeah. So
yes, and that's ridiculous. I agree. Yeah. But yes, any of us can be married to whoever we want, but there's obstacles to it.
Yeah. So my wife, for instance, is not Jewish, so we had to go to Prague and get married, which is something.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, which is something I would actually suggest everyone does, because the monopoly that the rabbinical Orthodox system has on marriage here is like every monopoly. This is where corruption starts, and where corruption meets religion, this is where you get some pretty interesting things going. I'm not going to go into that because another divide between liberals and conservatives, and this ties into everything that we're going to speak about, is Israel. So, are you for the two-state solutions? This two-state solution, like Palestinians get their own sovereign state in Judea and Samaria, basically, and Jews have their own sovereign state in the rest of Israel, the rest of sort of what is left from mandatory Palestine.
So me personally, right? This is what we're talking about? Yeah. Yes and no. I push the two-state solution because it is the only solution that both internationally, meaning the international community says that's what we have to do. Basically, that's what they're saying. And both Israelis and Palestinians are used to enough. It's not that they like it. Nobody here likes it. They're used to the idea enough to maybe compromise on it. And I say maybe, it's a huge maybe. I don't think it'll actually work. So I kind of push that, at least when in my frame of mind, when I'm asking people questions that have to do with solutions, in my mind, unless it's specifically about one state, binational, or Israel controls, or whatever, At least that's my mindset, my worldview at the time. I don't actually believe it'll work. It won't work because there are too many people on both sides, mostly Palestinians, but on the Jewish side as well, who will attempt to destroy it. So I know if we, for example, did a unilaterally move out of the West Bank, for sure we will have rockets fired at Tel Aviv. Absolutely, I have no doubt. I would still choose to do it though. I really would, because part of me is the principled me is saying, as a Zionist, yes, I am a Zionist, and I only became a Zionist, I have to say, I didn't really care about the issue until I met Arabs, and I mean Arabs in Canada actually, who were so obsessed with taking Israel away from the Jews, the idea of us having self-determination, that I saw how important everyone's self-determination is. So I believe in Kurdish self-determination and Palestinian self-determination. And any group who feels that they have a need for self-determination, I think that's great. It's how do you do it? That's going to be, if not impossible, very, very difficult, because Palestinian self-determination is currently, in how they see it, is conditional upon going back to an original house, which is today Israel. And they want that original house. They want that, and if there's no house there, we're talking about a house often. Sometimes there are houses, beautiful, great houses. I can show examples if you want me to do a video on that, that could be interesting. But in general, most of the people were quite poor, living in tin shacks. To be honest, or living in like ruins of places. If you see pictures of people living before 1948, it was poor. But they want that piece of land, and even if there's a university there now, or people are living there, they don't care. They want them out, gone. There's no sharing. It's ours, and that's it. So I don't know. As much as I believe the two-state solution is probably the only real solution, or a combination of. Some people have an idea of confederations. For example, it's a two-state solution, but there's states, like in the American sense of states. Yeah. And there's some sort of supra level above them, which deals with things like roads and electricity and, the sort of for everyone. If we were all getting along, I think that's a wonderful idea. That would plug into my idea that each group, Jews and Palestinians, each have a sense of self-determination, and we could all make it work. But it's not going to work. It's absolutely not going to work. I can cut to the chase of why. In my opinion, you're dealing with two very, very, very different cultures they can't even define the conflict in the same way. So if you're speaking to a Palestinian, you're speaking to an Israeli, you might as well be Burma and Costa Rica as different countries. They are not even speaking on the same level in any way, other than they could probably agree, yes, everyone should respect each other, and that's it. Everything else is seen differently. And you're dealing with a very Eastern culture, an honor culture, Palestinian, honor culture where it's very black and white. And for example, what you'll learn in the video about compromise is the reason that nobody could use the word compromise is because there is no word in Arabic for compromise. It means giving up. It means being conquered, being like there is no sharing. There's us and them, and that's it. Whereas for Israelis, there is that concept. It's been very westernized, even though 55% of the population comes from the East, comes from Arab cultures, Islamic cultures, both within Judaism and because of the westernization of the country, the idea of sharing can exist. It can. And I say can, a lot of people don't want it to. So yes, on the Israeli side, you're also going to have the people who are going to go and try to destroy any chance of a two-state solution or any solution that doesn't agree with what they want. Okay, so I danced around a whole bunch of things. I don't know if you want.
No, it's okay, because I'll just explain. The whole idea of having the background section is because, again, I already started with, do you think that your biases somehow influence the videos? And what I want to make sure in this section specifically, and I hope that you will cut it out at least and put it as a section of its own on your site. I do think that it is important to have this as a sort of disclaimer saying, listen, guys, this is where I come from. And when you're watching the videos, remember that when I choose the questions, choose the people, at least on the Israeli side, where you know more or less what you're going to get, more or less, at least a sense of, then at least people can already come, because, you know, in my...
But I'm not choosing people who are going to agree with me. I'm not choosing people who are going to confirm a bias that I have when I go, even though I actually look for the people who are going to contradict the bias. As much as possible, and I'm usually surprised one way or the other. It's usually not what I thought they were going to say. For example, yesterday I was in the West Bank asking Jewish settlers if they have Palestinian friends. I didn't expect any of them to have Palestinian friends. They did.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Oh.
It's not my world. I didn't know. Who I asked, I really believe I am trying, and it's not one. I have one video. I can't remember what the video was, but I felt like after 7 people, everyone seemed too leftist to me. Like, it just felt too, like, you know, it was too nice. I was like, come on, there's got to be somebody who's going to have, like, you know, an asshole opinion. Got to be one, you know, like someone who's going to say, no, fuck them, I hate them all, or something. And I don't remember the question was, actually. But I actually went out looking for somebody who looked like grumpy and, you know, mean-spirited. So, no, I swear, when I'm asking people, I am looking for average. I am looking for, and I'm sometimes surprised by what they give me. I think they're going to be average left, and they turn out to be far right, and sometimes I think they're right and they're left. It happens.
Okay.
I don't know how to do the disclaimer in something so quickly. So if you have an idea for that, I have no problem, but, you know, explaining my politics to everyone is exhausting.
No,
I'm doing it now. I have no problem with it, but it's exhausting. So.
I completely understand. I can tell you that on my videos where, okay, so my videos are not precisely also like yours. It's not exactly opinion videos. I am trying to give facts and then, you know, extract opinion.
Yeah, but you're giving facts the way you select them. Meaning according to your worldview, and that's fine. You're allowed. It's okay.
Exactly.
I am hopefully, I hope, when I'm speaking for Palestinians there, or speaking of Palestinians, I'm both challenging them and trying to explain to the viewer who maybe thinks there's no such thing as a Palestinian, or screw the Palestinians, they, you know, whatever. But at the same time, I am trying to humanize as much as possible. Sometimes it's difficult because people say some nasty things. So, and there's only so much I can, you know, I can do. But sometimes people do say nasty things on both sides. And then it's, you know what, screw you, have your opinions. But I'm not going to protect you. But I hope that I'm, you know, and a lot of people have said that they've humanized both Israelis and Palestinians through this.
So I'll just tell you something about settlers. If you want to get the extreme views, you need to go to the yeshivot tichoniot of Kibbutz Rugot. Now try to explain that.
Yeah, they're the people who study whatever, but I actually don't want to get extreme views on it.
No, okay.
Part of the problem is the media focuses on extremes, generally on the Israeli side more than also on the Palestinian side, and it's like, okay, but does that? What my question always is, how much of the population does that make up? Now I know on the Israeli side what that is, and it's very small, so my goal when asking is. To show in the Palestinian side how many think, I don't know what you call extremists exactly, but, you know, I know what I call extremists. You know, how many of them think in extreme ways?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So again, I'll just tell you that when you, again, I consider myself right-wing, and I can tell you that most people on the right, above a certain age,
mm-hmm.
and yes, from above a certain level of IQ, tend to actually understand and relate to Arabs better than people on the left.
What does that mean, relate to?
Well, when I converse with Arabs, which I do a lot, now admittedly, most of them are atheists, so it radically changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere the conversation goes, it changes radically. What I feel and what I get the sense from on their side too is that I find it easier to communicate with them. My dentist is Arab, and we actually went into that, and he said, when we're talking about cultural differences and all that, he says, I feel that you, coming from the right wing, are much more truthful about my culture and about your own culture too. It's like there's something a bit more. It's like coming from an antagonistic sort of worldview where you put yourself against the other, not against in terms, contrasting yourself against the other, sort of makes you, in a way, makes it easier for you, in a way, to understand them better. You understand them through yourself. Whereas coming from a more left-wing paradigm, and what I think makes a left-wing liberal is their ability to empathize with the other side, to sympathize with the other side, and what that actually does is you lose your sense of self, and once you do, you tend to impose your own worldviews on the other, and suddenly you say, we are all equal, we are all the same, but we're not all equal, and we're certainly not the fucking same. If you come from that worldview, you will never understand the other. And I think this is one of the strengths of having nationalists. And I think that if you go back to early Zionists and you read what people like Jabotinsky, right, the right-wing Zionist, what he wrote about Arabs and the conflict, and what the left wing wrote about Arabs and the conflict, you already see from the start that not only did the right wing understand Arab culture better, but also they already sort of saw where things will go if we don't do this and that. Now, we'll never know if they were right or not. But
I agree. But I also think there's an arrogance about the right wing, because I just experienced it yesterday. Just me asking questions in the settlement, I got heckled a couple of times. I should post that part. We were called Shalom Achshav, like we're a bunch of peaceniks, and we're there to embarrass the settlers, right? It's hilarious. And one guy got so mad over something, I don't even understand what he thought he heard, but he thought he heard me say something anti-settler, which I didn't. And I could talk shit about settlers because I think they're full of crap. Like, sorry, I really do. But based on who they are, based on that sense of like entitlement of I'm going to be an aggressive person because I have power, and I'm going to be an asshole about it. So while the left goes into the same situation that's completely naive, going, oh, look at the flowers, look how pretty, we all like knafe. I love knafe. It's an Arab thing. I actually dislike Arab food immensely. I'm sorry. I like Asian food. I'm sorry.
Everybody loves Arab food.
So I'm unique. So this is a good thing about me. I am not romanticized by either the Jewish world or the Arab world. I think they're both full of shit like you wouldn't believe. So when they're there and you have the left-wing people going, oh my God, the hummus is so good, it's so wonderful, it tastes amazing, and the right-wing going, oh, look, they're all a bunch of terrorists, I'm sort of sitting in the middle just figuring, I'm just like more curious going, okay, which of this is true? Like, that's what I want to know. So I try to ignore all that, and my tendency is sometimes to be left and sometimes to be right. Yes, of course. I'm influenced by the same things you're talking about. But I don't think that gives you, well, yes, right-wing people do define or do analyze the Arab world and Arab societies and cultures much better than people who are liberal and left. I agree, 100%. You're basically right. So what? There's also much more complexity than that. To know. It's not just about criticizing Islamic fundamentalism and Arab fundamentalism and honor culture, and I really do love to criticize it. I really, really do. It just makes me happy because I just think it's full of shit. But there's more to it. There's also much more humane issues. For example, I still point out that why don't the people I know in Ramallah have water 24 hours a day? How do we live in a system where we're claiming a territory and I know we don't have direct control in Ramallah, I agree. So for the last 15, 20 years, PA has been in charge. Why don't people in Ramallah have water 24 hours a day? They don't. I mean, they have these big cisterns, so they technically, or de facto they do, but meaning if I just wanted to leave my tap on, it would run out, and then I would only get water 3 times a week. There's something screwed up about the system. That's what I'm trying to point out. Or at least that's what I learned. I shouldn't say I'm trying to point it out. It's what I've learned is that the issues that people keep claiming are, I think they're focusing on the wrong things and they're doing it for very emotional, humane reasons, meaning you're reacting to what left-wing people or what Arabs are saying, the nonsense, that 90% bullshit that they're talking about. I agree. And they're reacting to the bullshit, Hasbara, how they call it or whatever, that Israelis, or they think Israelis do. They hear stuff on the internet and they take it out of context. It doesn't really matter. The point is, I don't think what I've learned is I don't think anyone's really looking at what the real issues are here. Things like just having water, electricity, a sense of self-determination, power, agency in that sense. And I don't know how to get to those. I really don't. I'm not a person who has any solutions. I'm just saying I think everyone's looking at the wrong stuff and focusing on the wrong things and forgetting the humanity of each other.
Well, when I get asked that, I respond in twofold. First of all, on the Israeli side, one of the things is that the Israeli government / Israeli establishment, military establishment, that is, and in a certain way, the Israeli public didn't yet decide if this piece of land is ours or not.
Exactly. And that's part of it. I agree.
Yeah.
And we stopped having the conversation, which is really sad.
Yeah.
I wasn't here, but Israelis stopped having the conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
They just don't care. You ask the average Israeli about the West Bank, it's just no man's land. They don't go to it, or maybe they'll visit someone who lives there, maybe. And even then, you know how many people, and right-wing people, I love to bring right-wing people with me to the Palestinian territories, not one has ever agreed to come. Not one. They make excuses. It's not legal. They won't say they're afraid, but they're afraid. They're afraid they're going to be killed. And for good reason. I mean, they could be killed. Absolutely. But
and we'll get to that too.
Shut off, what it means to be in this conflict. And it's understandable. It's exhausting.
Well, I'll tell you just the other reason, and the other reason is simply based on goddamn fucking history. If you go everywhere in history where
meaning as Jews, we've been abused all around the world.
In the case of the history, especially of Palestine, you can see that where the Jews went, you had flowing water, you had electricity, you had all the standards.
I think that's nonsense. That's money. We had money only in the last 100 years. We have had money.
No, I'm sorry. We did not have money. This is, there are two really annoying misconceptions about early Zionism and the early steps of Israel. First of all, people think that we weren't well equipped in terms of weaponry. We were much better equipped than the Arab armies that came into Israel. People think otherwise because people like the miracle narrative and the David and Goliath narrative, but it wasn't. We had better weapons, we were better trained, and a whole bunch of other things. The other misconception is that we were here with money. We were not. People forget that in the first 10 years of Israel, this was one of the poorest countries on earth. People here lived off rations. There
No, I
is.
know. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the money that went to the state from Jewish communities abroad. In Israel, yes, my mother-in-law lived off rations for the first 10 years of the state. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
But
So
in terms of state building, and for some reason, and sometimes I look at Israeli society and think, how do these people do this? I don't understand. They're a bunch of idiots, seriously. Uh, I know a lot of people think, oh, Israel's so wonderful, like, it's this amazing society. The fact that we have this amazing infrastructure, I'm shocked by, because you meet the people who work in a lot and are politicians, and how much incompetence there is. So I'm kind of shocked by that, I have to say. But a lot of it came from foreign Jews who suddenly started to have money in Western society, and they would contribute to Israel through the JNF and through the army.
There is so much more money poured into the Palestinian Authority and their lands. So much more money. I mean,
I don't know. Someone would have to do a really good
listen,
study. I don't know. But it is wasted there. Yeah, I agree. In terms of Palestinians, I have not seen, this is one other thing that shocks me. I have, other than Salam Fayyad, I have never heard anyone ever talk about state building in any way in all my time wandering around Palestine. Nobody thinks about it. Everyone, and you ask them about it, and they say, oh, once we conquer Israel, once we get rid of Israel, or have a state in the West Bank, yes, then we will think about it. And that's the dumbest thing to do. The smart thing about the founders of Israeli society was they set up the infrastructure that would become the state way before. And they were smart about it. I don't know, I mean, I didn't know any of them, and you know, you could read all the books you want, but they really did a very good job of that.
Yeah. Well, I'll just finish up that point. Remember that Palestinians got more funding than the entire Marshall Program that basically renovated Europe. Okay, it didn't only rebuild it; it renovated Europe in its entirety after World War II. Okay, and Palestinians, for this tiny little strip of land, for only less than 10 million people, got more money than that and squandered it.
Far less than 10 million. There are 2.5 million and another like 4 million total.
No, they're like, if you count all the descendants and everything, you should get at least.
Oh, through UNRWA, and are you talking about also in other countries? You mean like in Lebanon, Syria?
Yeah.
Okay, Jordan.
Because UNRWA takes care of those people. Okay. If you take all the money that UNRWA got and that the Palestinian Authority got, I mean, you can't even compare it to the amounts of money that Israel got. Okay, it's nowhere even close to the amount of money, and the reason that they can't leverage it, it's not only that they won't, they can't. First of all, corruption, which has always been a hallmark of Arab societies throughout history. Second of all, they do not have a real notion of a nation. Maybe the Palestinians now more than others, but still, if you go and
how you find a nation, I find them quite, well, yes and no. I mean, they're still in terms of clan and family, but and a little bit, for example, I asked, you know, who they would marry and who they wouldn't marry. There's certain elements of their society, no, they don't marry within, you know, Hebron people. Nobody seems to want to marry them. They're seen as low class and primitive. But in terms of being a group, in the way that Israelis are a group, no, I think they very much are a nation, very much.
Well,
and that's a more recent development. That's not, you know, if you had asked a Palestinian in 1929 if that was true, they would have said no, they were, you know, Arab or Muslim, or they just would see things differently. That's okay.
When we're talking, I'll try to explain the point better. One of the reasons that Jews won the Civil War in 1947, before the war that came in, before the actual regional war in 1948, one of the reasons is, again, you mentioned the clan. Well, if you ask a person, who would he rather die for? Palestinians, Arabs, or his clan? His clan would be the first.
Of course. It's the Their society, absolutely. That's
But
okay.
it's not. It is not what you would have gotten from an Israeli back in '48,
No,
and
it was our people.
the reason
We had a much
that
more
we,
developed sense of peoplehood at the time. Yeah,
yeah, well,
absolutely.
we have that for over 2,000 years, so
Yeah.
stands to reason. But the thing is, the reason that we won the Civil War, people forget that during the Civil War, they were actually they had more weapons, they controlled better grounds, high grounds, they controlled the roads and all that. The reason that they lost is that when we attacked an Arab village, the village next to it didn't intervene. In fact, in some cases, if they had some sort of blood feud, they would actually help the Jews. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But if a kibbutz was under fire, men and women from all the kibbutzim around them used to go and send reinforcements. And this is why we won, and this is why we will continue to win, and this is why they will never have a state. It will have nothing to do with our goodwill or with the world's goodwill. Their culture is not built for statehood, and this entire region, the entire Middle East, everything that we see around us, this area has been balkanized ever since, even when Islam came onto the map. Even then, Islam did manage to sort of create a common sense of the Ummah. But even then, even with Islam, the clan is still more important. And this is why if we want to win any war here, with the Palestinians, with Daesh, with Iraqis, whatever you want to win a war, and this, goes out to every politician out there in the world, including us in Israel. You want to win wars, you find the right clan to side with, and that's how you win wars in the Middle East.
Okay.
The entire idea of having nation states here is I mean, it's easier for us in the West because then we have someone to sort of communicate with who controls a large area, but it's
Okay, so yeah, you could make the claim here. I'll go back to what you were saying before. That is the leftist in me, the liberal in me. I'm not looking at it from a strategic point of view. I'm looking at it from, how can we get along? And really, the answer is we can't. Or we can in small pockets, and of course, and really, if people wanted it to, we could. But I think there's just many people who just don't want it to happen. So yeah, when I'm asking my questions, I am asking from that sort of liberal perspective. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so
if someone doesn't like it, please create your own questions, please. I mean, or send me the questions. Actually, that's okay, and I'll do it as a write-up. That's fine. Or do your own series. That's legitimate.
Yep.
Just ask that you would not. Someone once did it, by the way, and somebody who lived in the Jewish settlement. But he only asked settlers. So I thought, well, what's the point? Like, it's interesting if it's ask a settler or ask a person who lives in Judea and Samaria. That's interesting. But it's not. But he's saying, no. My worldview of Efrat, I think is where he lived, is my whole worldview. So no, but that's not the whole worldview. But that shouldn't be what you're. I hope I get across as much as possible that this gives as much a spectrum of the worldviews because it's random. I'm walking up to random people on streets, and not just in Tel Aviv, I go other places, that it gives a random sampling of what people think. Of course, it's only 8 or 10 people, but just an idea.
Okay, well, we'll get to that point later on. Just to finish.
It's been an hour. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I want to go on vacation.
I tell you what happens with these things is I usually say, okay, it's going to be 2 hours tops. And and this is usually because I tend to go into these tandems where I sort of have to push in my entire worldview into the video too. So sorry for that.
It's okay.
Next question. We did social liberal versus conservative, and I would say you're basically somewhat of a centrist leaning towards liberal, but you're not as liberal as I thought, and I can already tell you that people from my group, from my side of the political spectrum, automatically assume that you are a Shalom Achshav type of guy. Reading.
Okay.
It's just
By the way,
something
I'll
that,
go. I will hang out with anyone. I meaning not socially, because but I meaning I have. Some of them I actually haven't gone anywhere with them. But the Anarchists Against the Wall, I went with them to Hebron. They were full of shit too. Drove me crazy. The rightists, I went on lots of tours with the settlement movement, and hung out with them. Full of shit, like you wouldn't believe. And my whole goal is like, because I think everyone is full of shit. Really, I mean, I'm full of shit. People make these claims and they just forget that, like, for example, settler movement. We're standing on the top of a mountain, and below us is Nablus. And I don't know if you've ever seen Nablus, but it's huge. It's massive, huge city in the valley. It's huge. And they're pointing at a dot on the horizon of Itamar, a Jewish settlement, and another dot, another Jewish settlement. And I'm like, and they're ignoring the massive Palestinian city in front of them, never mentioned, never talked about. That to me is amazing. How, and same thing with the left. I mean, I have the same issues. When they're in Hebron and they're ignoring Palestinian violence and Palestinian hatred of Jews and Israelis, and just pretending it doesn't exist.
yeah.
Like, and they're saying Inshallah, and they're speaking in half Arabic, and, they're eating their hummus, and they go back to Tel Aviv or wherever they're from. And there's a certain full of shit quality to all that. Now, I appreciate anyone trying to help any other people or trying to do something positive in the world, what they think is positive in the world. No problem. I'm okay with that. I just, it's the Canadian observer in me is seeing all the contradictions in what people are doing and saying.
Yeah, it's interesting, but you belong to the nicest people on earth, basically. There is
We're
nothing
polite.
nicer than Canadians. It's like,
I'm not polite, but they are polite. Yes.
it's unbelievable, really. When they had this terror attack again in Canada just a year ago, 2 years ago, what was it?
The one in Ottawa with the shooting, you mean?
Yeah. I was like, what?
Yeah. Even there was a plane crash in Toronto, and even that was nice. Meaning nobody was hurt, everyone was fine. And even our plane crashes are nice. Yeah.
No, really, it's amazing. If there is, I mean, okay, so I come from, again, I know that my accent doesn't show, but I'm British, and no matter how polite the Brits are, there are no, for instance, football hooligans in Canada, or at least I never saw it.
There were people who would get drunk and throw beer bottles every so often.
It's
fags. Yeah, that happened to me once.
It's.
I'm glad homophobia is gone mostly in Canada, but yeah, that's about it, really. People who got drunk. That was kind of it.
Okay, so next question: socialist or capitalist? So this goes to liberal, conservative on the other spectrum.
Again, I love money. I wish I had money. I am poor. I am freaking poor, and I curse this country, and I curse my workplace who underpays me. I will officially admit this. My salary is like, if I was in Canada doing the same thing, I'd be making 3 times the amount. That pisses me off. Really.
Where do you work?
University of Tel Aviv.
Okay.
Yeah, they use us. They actually use us. There's a whole issue. They claim that there's a salary freeze and all kinds of things going on. Turns out that there's actually a freeze only because there's no one advocating for us. We have no union. We're completely screwed. And they use it against us all the time. So in terms of, I want money. I'm tired of being poor. Being poor sucks. It really sucks. On the other hand, I also believe that in society gives to its people as much as possible and supports its people when it needs it. So it's a mix. I can give you individual examples of socialist things in this country that I find ridiculous, and the opposite that aren't. That there are people here who go. I don't think no one's starving to death. Also in Palestinian society, nobody's starving to death. There's this idea that Palestinians are dirt poor and whatever. They're poor. They're absolutely poorer than Israelis, but not by a lot. I saw more poverty actually in Jordan, a lot more shocking poverty that I saw here in the West Bank. Okay, tangent, doesn't matter. Anyways, so where am I in the spectrum? It depends. I want to make money and have enough money to live and to be able to go on vacation once in a while, which at the moment I do not. At the same time, I think we, as a society, owe that's society in the sense of modern society should help people who can't help themselves.
Well, society. Society consists of individuals. So what you want is individuals that you would want to help. And another thing that I usually tell leftists is that, listen, I'm for that too, but you have to have a very strong, in my view, a nationalist, a very strong nationalist identity in order for people to identify with one another and being willing to give them money. But okay, so I more or less got it. And by the way, just so you'll know, socialists want money too, only then want others money. Okay? So that's the idea of distribution.
Well, look, if somebody's gonna, if a millionaire walked up to me and said, "I'm going to give you half of my money," I'm not going to say no. Oh, me? No, I don't want your money. Of course, I mean everyone would. So who would say no?
I'm not talking about voluntary giving out money. I'm talking
if there was a social program that I could plug into to get more money, I would absolutely take advantage of it. I have no problem with that.
Okay.
If I'm king, I probably wouldn't have as many social programs. But I'm not king, so it depends. It depends on what the issue is.
Okay, so given this is the last background question, this is sort of to wrap the thing about liberal, conservative, socialist, capitalist. I'm sorry that I'm going to do that.
Right.
I think we both have the same answer to this one. I certainly hope so, at least. Hillary or Trump?
Oh, God. Come on. That's ridiculous. Obviously, Hillary. Trump is ridiculous. First of all, actually, I do want him to get elected because I think in terms of just comedic, what could happen, I think that's hysterical to have Trump as the president of the United States. But really, come on, that's so embarrassing. Oh my God, it's terrible. And I don't understand. First of all, I don't understand all the people who hate Hillary and make up or obsess about things which I think are emails here and there. Okay, I don't think they're big deals. I really don't. I just don't see Trump as a person who's able to make rational decisions for the good of everyone, other than himself. So if I were, that's how I vote. I mean, look, it doesn't matter what their politics are. Are they looking out for, society as a whole, or are they just looking out for themselves? That's how I tend to vote. So for example, I'll tell everyone who I vote for in Israel. I generally voted Meretz because I think they are the only political party that has any values. I don't think anyone has values in this country. In terms of societal values, meaning we give back and we help and we do stuff like that. Now, I think politically they're full of crap, meaning in terms of the solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and things like, or the Golan Heights. They once said, I don't know if they do now, but they would give back the Golan Heights. I think are you crazy? Are you nuts? So I don't agree with everything about it, but in terms of having values, Ruby Rivlin, who's the current president, right? Yeah, current president. I'm bad with what's going on. If he had a political party and he wasn't in the Likud, which I don't really like the Likud because I find they stand for nothing. But him personally, yes, I would absolutely vote for because he has values. Meaning, if he has a value of fairness in society, he applies it to everyone in society. That's what I'm looking at. So that's who that's who I would vote for. And if somebody else came along, I don't care if they're right or left. I really don't care. I want to know that they're taking everyone into consideration, and of course not everyone you can deal with in the same way. Societies are complex, but we try. That's what we do. That's their job. I elect people to be better than me, to be less emotional than me, to be less of an asshole than me, to also be less of a sympathetic schmuck than me. I want someone to be smarter than me, and it seems that at least in this society, it's a very emotional, party-driven society. That's not how people are voting because they vote right because I'm Moroccan and the Ashkenazi elite screwed me out of everything. Therefore, 2 generations later, I'm still going to vote Likud or whoever. That to me is silly. That that doesn't stand the test of time. So
Yeah.
that's my. What did you actually originally ask? I already forgot.
Hillary.
I'm tired. Oh, Hillary or Trump? Sorry, yes. So I don't really care that much about American politics. It doesn't really affect me, but I mean, it's just so in the news, of course.
It affects all of us. It affects all of us.
Yeah, I'm not a political person. I don't focus on this.
It affects all of us, all around the world. They are the sole superpower. Whoever stands, I mean, Obama.
I don't think any of them, I don't care who it is going to be more anti-Israel or pro-Israel that much. They're confined by issues. They're confined. They're not going to, cut off aid to Israel, for example, which actually I wish they actually would stop giving aid to Israel, because I think it's kind of silly. This is a society that I think can take care of its own.
Well,
I really do. Yeah, I think it's silly. I know Israelis don't agree with me. I'm asking this question now to Israelis, and they don't seem to agree. But I think $3 billion, $4 billion a year, this country makes a lot more than that, and we could survive. I think. But I'm not an economist.
It doesn't go to Israel. It
goes to yes, weapons. We buy American weapons, so it's a stimulation package for American weapons. Yeah. But it's still free weaponry for Israel.
Oh, it's not free. It's not free.
In what sense?
Well, this is how you buy political power from a nation. This is how.
Okay, yes. If they wanted to have a war in Iraq or Iran or whatever, they could use us. They would use us anyway, so that's okay.
Yeah, I always try to remind people, okay, nations don't have friends; they have interests.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's not, and I think that I wouldn't want to get that type of money too, but not for the same reasons. Mainly because I think it hurts the local economy. But that's a whole different.
I don't know. I don't understand economics. I don't know much about it. I'm just, I just see how people criticize Israel getting aid. Yet I think they're full of shit, because they don't criticize Egypt or the Palestinians, but and they say, oh, but Israel gets so much more. Not that much more. There's still how many billions going into Palestinian economy? They still have no economy. I don't know. Anyways, the point is, if you're going to equally, at least give your judgment equally to everyone.
No, I'll just. I know that I'm interjecting all the time here, but I'll just mention two Americans specifically. Now, you said it goes back into the let's use the term military-industrial complex. Okay. When money goes into any industry in a certain country, that money then goes back into taxes, and people have you have jobs. People have more money to spend. When people have money to spend, other people creating the goods that they buy also get money, and so forth. So this is money. Americans, dear Americans everywhere, what you are buying when you give money to Israel and Egypt and all the rest, you are buying political influence, which you need because you're a fucking superpower. And if you want to continue being a superpower, you have to give out military aid.
Yeah, but Israel would side with the U.S. no matter what.
What's that?
Israel would side with the U.S. no matter what, because we're very similar in terms of mentality and culture. And
I don't agree. I
don't think so. I think so.
No. No, we could have just as easily have sided, and we might actually find ourselves. What?
With Russia, you mean?
Not Russia, because they're not a superpower, but China. Eventually, we might end up siding with China. And again, I'm looking back at history. When we had to, then we sided with Assyria. When we had to, we sided with Babylon. We sided with whatever superpower.
I just see much more. I'm saying culturally and mentality-wise, we have much more in common with the United States than we do with China. Not to say anything bad about China in its illiberal systems, but in terms of having a liberal and capitalistic society economy, we're much more. And Israelis just love America. I mean, it doesn't come through in the videos, which is too bad. But if you want to say something is amazing, you say America in the Hebrew. You say America, which never captured in the video, but whatever.
Not only that, if you want to explain to Americans how much Israelis love them, you go in Netanya, where I live. Okay, so it's not exactly Tel Aviv, which is a state of its own in Israel. If you go to Netanya, which is much more Israel proper, and you go here during Independence Day, you have cars and you have an Israeli flag on one side and the American flag on the other.
Okay, I haven't seen that very well. Okay, yeah, but that's more than anyone else. I can't think of any other country they would associate with.
Yeah.
Bug to America.
Okay, so wow, look, this is now we're almost an hour and a half in, and we only finished the first damn section. So again, we might actually end up doing it in.
I think so, because I'll give you another half hour, but I'm going to get tired. I'm going to be first to just agree with everything you said. Fine, whatever. I'm a raving socialist, communist. Okay, yeah, go with it. That's
well,
fine.
you are voting for merits, and merits basically means that they're going to take the money I earn because I work very hard and give it to you, or actually to Arabs.
I would love if they gave it to me. Anyways, go on.
Yeah. Don't worry, I won't let them. So, okay, wow, okay. So if we're gonna have such a short time,
we can do this in another session too.
Oh yeah, we're gonna break up. I'll say let's have another half an hour, so that will basically sum up this this video, and then we're gonna have a follow up. Okay, so motives. Who funds you?
Me. It's exhausting. I can't believe I do this, and people think I'm lying, but I swear it's me. I get, every so often I do get, because there's a GoFundMe page, which everyone says, oh, you should open up one of those FundMe pages. I'm like, I've had it for 4 years, and I maybe get $50 a month if I'm lucky. And just so you know, each time, I gotta put this in the videos, I'm a bad Jew. I'm not good at making money. But every time I go to the West Bank, it costs me at least $200, if not more. So every video you see is basically $200 out of my freaking pocket, and I don't make enough money. And then I have, and then I'm monetized now, because at one point YouTube stopped monetizing, and because anything that was Israel or Palestine was like, you know, it's not advertisable. So now I'm monetized, so that's good. So I get a little bit of extra money from that, but I don't break even, not even close. So I got to figure, if anyone has ideas of how to make money, I'm very bad at it. My son thinks, I have a 17-year-old son, and he thinks I should make merchandise, T-shirts and bags and stuff like that. And I thought that'd be fun, actually, but it's not big money. I don't know how to make big money. So if anyone has ideas, I'm very open to. I will prostitute myself. I have no problem with that. So motives. Other than that, what is my motive?
Wait. Don't worry. I have very specific questions about motives. I'll just ask, why not a Patreon account?
I do have one.
Oh, okay.
I have everything that everyone ever says to me. I'm like a dog. I swear to God. Somebody says, you should do a Facebook page. Oh, I go and I do one, and nobody pays attention to it. And you should do Patreon. Nobody has ever given me any money from Patreon. Actually, it's really funny. I got to say this. Because this is, in terms of I love full of shit moments. So I have this GoFundMe page. Do you know how many people post their questions and do not pay on that page? And it is always people from the Middle East. Always. It's hilarious. I'm like, if that doesn't say something about the situation, it's like, oh yes, here's my question, and you best ask it, and I'm going to post it on your page publicly, and I'm not going to pay. And then even funnier, I have no way to get back to them, right? So on that page, even funnier is then they'll send me another email later going, why didn't you do my question? You didn't freaking pay. Most people who ask questions don't pay. But anyways, I just like to poke fun at that because I think it's hilarious. And actually the people who most give on that site are mostly non-Jews, non-Israelis. I don't think any Israelis give me money. One Arab, actually I have to say, one Iraqi guy gave me money. I'll give him credit. Give me $50. Oh, and another woman gave me $5 who was Muslim. I don't know where she was from. And even that, like, wow, that's sweet. You know, like she was a student. She just loved the videos. And I'm like, yeah, that's, I'm so thrilled that anybody pays any attention to this. So, sorry, that was my funny rant for the day.
Well, you need to push harder, and you
Yeah,
need to
so
make
I'm not good at
videos.
that, so if anyone has ideas, please let me know.
Oh, I can already tell you. Every video that you start, you have to start and end with your Patreon account logo and a link to there.
I
And
feel, yeah, I feel like greedy. I feel like I'm not good. I'm Canadian that way. I'm very shy.
stop,
I'm very, I mean,
stop
I'm shy.
greediness. Listen,
Yeah, I know, you're
I
right.
make for every video on my Hebrew channel, I make about $1,000.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But the thing is, listen, I earn about 2.5 times the average Israeli salary. So for me to take a day off to make a video, that costs a lot of money. So
Yeah, I make
I'm
below the
losing.
average. No, I make below the average, actually. Yeah. The average is what, 7,000, 8,000 now? No, what is it? 10,000. Sorry. I make well below that.
So
Anyways.
in any case, so staying at the motives, why, and you sort of already answered that. So I'll go to the next one because you already started with more or less why you started the project.
Yeah.
This is a motive if you think about it. What purpose do you think it serves?
Okay, so the original motive was that, you know, you see people have debates and discussions and arguments and get very emotional about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict online. They love this. There's an outside, which Israelis don't understand. They think that's hilarious. They think that's bizarre. Why anyone would be interested in them? And there's this obsession with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And what always struck me is that after living here as a Canadian, I'm not Israeli, I'm Jewish, but I'm not, you know, so it's not so much, I mean, part of me, yeah, I guess I take a side because I'm used to a side, but part of me is also, looking at what people say about Israel, that's how it started, and what my experience of Israel was. Yeah. And they never matched up, ever. Like, people would make these claims, and they would always have a video to back it up. That was, or a newspaper article, excuse me, to back it up. And I'd be like, it would be of like some person who said something, and I'd be like, but I've never met anyone in this country who actually said that. So maybe there is. I'm not saying there isn't. I'm saying, but it's like in Canada, believing that we should all, I don't know, think of an example that's like un-Canadian. Can't think of one. Anyways, it's like claiming stuff about another culture, and it just doesn't make any sense in your culture, right? Yeah. So you just kind of listen, and you say, no, I don't think that's true, and I'm a like Canadian, no, and then you start getting into arguments. No, don't be ridiculous. And then at some point, somebody says, somebody actually said this. What are you going to go ask people? And I had this flash of like, wait a second, if I just ask people around me on video for their opinions, first of all, I proved them wrong, whatever they were claiming. I forget what it was. And and also maybe I'd learn something. Maybe I'll find out if I'm wrong. You know what? Who knows? So I tried it. And then as soon as I saw the first one is called One State Solution. You can look it up. And it's me talking over them because I had no idea how to do subtitles, and I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know anything. And when I saw it in a movie, I saw, wow, that's really powerful. Taking 6, 7, 8 opinions of people, and they were just the people around me. Like there was a guy who sells me fruits and vegetables, and the guy at the homeless place, and the guy, just people I happen to know, or I stop people on the street a couple of times. And I thought, well, it's really powerful to see just people's opinions. And if I do this, I'm going to have to do it much more random. It can't be the guy who sells me vegetables every time, and it can't be who I assume I know his politics. He's like Likudnik. It's got to be a much more, wider spectrum. It can't just be in Tel Aviv. So if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. So you see at the beginning of my videos, it's kind of the rules, is that, and I set these out at the beginning, that I would ask random people. I try to go to as many places as possible. It's hard because money-wise and time, because I work full-time. But if I have an appointment, if I'm going actually up to Akko in a week and a half, because I work at the university and I'm taking students up there, I'm taking my camera. I'm, as we're stopping at the gas station to go for a pee break, I'm asking people outside. That's what I'm doing. So it's to be as random as possible. I have to include everything. So I made a commitment that nothing will be cut. I don't care if it's the most horrific thing. Other than once, I actually cut one thing where somebody said something anti-Islamic. I won't say what it was.
No.
And what?
I have a question about that. You have to
Wait.
say that.
Well, I'm not. Oh, what it was? No, I'm not causing. I'm not causing violence. Look, there are a lot of Muslims out there. I'm sorry, are crazy. So if I say Muhammad is a whatever, that's not what was said, but whatever. Someone's gonna take that clip and post it somewhere and start a riot. I'm not getting anyone killed. That is not my intention here. That was the only thing I ever cut out, and I included the rest of the video. It was only cut out that one bit, and he said something anti-Islamic, and then the rest was him talking about how the Arabs have to be slaves. He was such an asshole. Anyways, point is that just because I don't like someone's opinion doesn't mean it shouldn't be there. Someone's opinion. So those were my rules. Oh, and then I'm allowed to, because I'm sorry, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be sarcastic and kind of an asshole back to people. And partially it's to make myself feel better, I swear to God. It makes me laugh. And part of it is because if people claim things all the time and don't necessarily back up what they're saying with any examples. So I always ask, so give me an example, always. And so a lot of times they have examples and something I hadn't thought of, and they surprise me. And a lot of times, as I suspected, they repeat slogans. They repeat something they heard a politician say or someone, people say on the street, and they just like repeat it. And they have no real idea what it means, and they have no way to back it up. So, yes, I do. I ask, I'll do those sort of things. And I get a lot of feedback saying, how dare you, for example, the most extreme example on both sides, one would be asking Palestinian refugees, things about, like, kind of, when I'm in a refugee camp, I think it's that horrible. It's very similar to where I live. I live in South Tel Aviv. They're poor, I agree. There are also a lot of them don't work, which I don't agree with. There's a sense of entitlement because they're refugees in the culture. They're seen with respect because of that, blah, 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 whatever. But I can still challenge it. It's like you challenging as a right-wing person, someone who's on welfare. But wait a second, if you could work, why are you on welfare? It's the same idea. So, and then the same idea is the most horrible thing I've asked is about the Holocaust for Israelis. And of course, the Holocaust has a huge meaning to me as a Jew. And I didn't have any family directly in the Holocaust, but my family left Europe way before. But we have stories which are related to the Holocaust. And of course, the Holocaust is a horrible, horrible thing. I mean, it really does stand out, even if forget about me being Jewish. It's an objectively horrific thing to happen. I still think it's fine to ask people, questions. Not necessarily, but I'm not challenging, the Holocaust in terms of people who are killed, because I'm not an academic in that sense. I didn't study how many, and I actually trust the Yad Vashem claims they have 5 point something million names of Holocaust survivors. I see no reason why they would lie. I see no issue with that. But I still have no problem asking people who use the Holocaust for political gains, or the opposite, who compare the Palestinian situation to the Holocaust, stuff like that, of calling out, like, okay, defend it. Explain to me how in Gaza, for example, where are the gas chambers? Where are the putting people in train cars and leaving them without water for a week so they die? Where are people lined up in a row and shot at? In Gaza. So, when people use these concepts, I got way off topic on this. So I'll ask anything, basically, is what I'm getting at. What did you originally ask me? Sorry, I'm tired.
Well, it started with sort of...
motives.
Yeah, but
so wait, let me get to one other thing. So before, so I don't forget to mention it. So then the other motive is, besides that, I want to show what is Israeli society and what they think, and what is Palestinian society and what they think. Besides that is that I studied conflict. I have an MA in conflict resolution and conflict studies, actually, from University of Ottawa, St. Paul University, good program. By the way, we have it in Tel Aviv University, excellent program. I run it, so yeah. Little plug for our program, but no. And so I'm interested in what is conflict, and why do we go to war, and why do we fight, and why do we get emotional about these things from psychological and political and cultural perspectives. But you also, once you study it, you have to figure out how you're going to get a job in something like that. And what I realized is I'm not a human rights person. I am not someone who's going to work for, what's the human rights organizations? B'Tselem, what's the mainstream one, the international one?
Wait, you mean
a human rights organization?
Human rights.
Okay, so I'm not that person. I am not going to go and just commiserate with everybody, because part of me is like, oh, wait a second, you're describing exactly what my family went through when you're talking about someone's human rights being abused. And I'm not denigrating them. I'm not saying therefore they have no reason to complain. I'm just saying everything within perspective. So that's just not me. There are great people out there who really can go and sympathize with people. It's just not me. And so then what else am I going to do with it? I could, there's teaching. I'm not a great teacher. Not going to happen. I don't have a PhD. So then I had to find my place in what it is that I think I'm good at and what I like to do. And what I figured out with the videos is that I can show what people in conflict think about it, think about the conflict in different ways. And through just the style of the videos, asking people for a question, and then asking the question, asking follow-up questions. And doing a little bit, I actually don't do enough of it, and it's something I always think about, is doing analysis as it's happening. Because there's some great, psychological, sociological, political theories which help explain what is actually going on when people are talking about it. And I kind of forget to, because the emotional side comes out, or the thinking side, the person who's like thinking, oh, how do I ask the next question, is really taking charge. But it's something that I should be including more of. So this is so all this to say that the part of it is not just to show what is going on in conflict. I feel like my role here is giving me a sense of purpose. In terms, because I like my work, but it's a bit boring. And I like living in Israel, but that can only take you so far. So this is my contribution to the world of explaining what's going on.
Okay. Well, I can already give you one way to make money: write a book.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people have said that. I don't know how to write. Okay, I'll figure that out.
Oh, well, you've met enough people to get sort of a sense of the two cultures and the narratives that sort of infest our minds. And you have the academic degree to sort of back you up in terms of respectability. So don't make a face. You might actually write a very interesting and maybe even an important book, but something else.
Okay, thank you.
I will, so
I'll try, yeah, sure.
Now we are really nearing the end. Now, because we're going to do it in two parts, I'm going to end not with the question regarding motives or the general questions. I'm going to end with a question which I didn't think I will ask, but because the Holocaust sort of turned up here. So my mom, I don't know if you know, my mom died of cancer. Yeah, so she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and and by the book, 6 months after diagnosis, she left us. But once she got it, and basically we all knew it's a death sentence. You don't get better. So what I did is I started my own video project where I asked her questions.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, but mainly for my daughter, really, because she didn't my daughter was born about a month after my mom died. So I wanted something so my daughter will know her grandma in a way. And she was a very interesting person. She was a Bible scholar. She was a very, very interesting person. But one of the questions that I asked her, and I think this is the only question that she didn't answer, she couldn't answer, and I will ask you because it's the most horrible question you can imagine. And it goes like this. If you could have prevented the Holocaust, knowing that the state of Israel wouldn't exist, would you? Would you have prevented it?
Wow. I don't know.
At the cost of Israel?
My gut feeling is yes, I would have done it. I think so. And I actually love, I mean, besides the fact that, I criticize everything here. There's a lot of things about this culture that I love. I really do. I think it's very interesting as an outsider, and I really feel like an outsider. It's nothing to do with being Jewish. I think there's Israeli culture and society is very interesting, very unique and dynamic, and it would be a shame if it never existed. And it wouldn't have existed because it was Israeli. I'm not talking about Jewish culture. I'm talking about Israeli culture. It's very different. It would be really a shame. But yeah, I mean, 6 million people. And I assume you mean by like killing Hitler as an infant. Well, I wouldn't kill an infant, but okay, but that kind of thing. I mean, it's besides the 6 million Jews, or 20 million other people, or 40 million other people who died in the war. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of, the world would have been a very different place. Yes, and likely we wouldn't have had the sympathy to get the votes at the UN at the time for the state of Israel.
For sure, for sure.
I don't know what would have happened, and I think, I don't want to be over emotional about it and think, Israel is that important. I mean, it was more, and I believe in the idea that Jews should be self-determining. I would have hoped that I doubt it, but I would have hoped they would have found a different way, dealing with Palestinians in a much more peaceful way, but I kind of doubt it just because of the way the Middle East is. It's just not ready for that type of idea yet. I don't know. I don't have a really great answer for you.
Yeah. I would have stopped the Holocaust, no matter what the cost.
You would have?
Yeah, for sure.
You wouldn't or would have?
I would have, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't care what
human life is important. So, yeah.
I don't care what the cost. It's just too many. I'm not even talking about the number of lives. I'm talking just the misery.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
1.5 million children, babies. I can't. It's. So I think we'll end here. We sort of. It's a very powerful last question. If you want, we can have 5 more minutes because this is a question that you can answer, I guess, fairly quickly, and this is actually the last question of this specific section anyway. So if you want, we can go for it, and then we'll go to the beef of the video, which is the actual general questions and actual questions. So. Inside the motives, I was trying to look for questions that will explain motives, but in a different way than what usually people would expect. So this is the last question in that section, and it goes: what would make you stop making those videos?
I don't know. I mean, maybe if I didn't have the passion to do it, if I didn't have I didn't get a thrill out of doing it anymore, I would stop. I like learning and knowing what people think, and the creative side of this, of like feeling, it's not so much my voice, it's feeling like I'm giving a voice. It's through letting Israelis and Palestinians speak on their own. So if I felt that that just didn't interest me anymore, then I suppose that would stop it. And other than that, there's kind of no end to how many questions you can ask people, and where you can go with it. But if it stopped being fun, it's really, for now, it's just a lot of fun. We have a great time when I go to the West Bank with my translator. We have a really good time. Sort of also talking about the people. As we're, she going, oh, he was lying out of his ass. Or he gave a really good answer, or whatever. And learning about Palestinian society, Israeli society, I know well, so it's not quite as, not all, I should say. Religious and West Bank Israeli society, I don't know very well. So, when I do videos with them, I learn a lot. It's just interesting. and I learn from, you know, it's firsthand, so I can say, okay, you said that, but let's go to the next person and ask them. So, you know, like if I'm learning from a book or I see a video and, you know, somebody's making a claim, I don't know how, if I was, let's say, learning about Iraqi society or Serbian society or something like that, I don't know how common, you know, that view is. Whereas here I have, you know, direct access to just ask anybody. And hopefully people can learn from the videos by watching enough of them to, you know, get a sense of who the people are, what their worldviews are, what they think.
Okay. So, by the way, just so you'll know, this is the best way to know what the motives are. Because if you find out what will stop someone from doing something, you know basically what really makes him do it. So this is the point behind the question.
I have fun. Like, I enjoy it. I really do.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we can end here. I'm really sorry for all the people who are watching and who didn't get to ask the questions. We both promise that the next video we'll have the question period. Maybe it's actually good because this way maybe more people can show up next time and we'll have maybe an even bigger audience. I'm not sure how many people are watching now, but I can see that the chat is very active, and like always, people are dissing each other, and there's a lot of Jew and kite coming up here.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
People, your obsession with the Jews is ridiculous. Enough already. So ridiculous.
Good thing Corey Jew friends like him talking dick up his fat ass.
My ass is actually very small. It's a little skinny ass. I don't have a fat ass. Fat stomach, yes. Fat ass, no. Sorry.
So,
look, I'm giving you analysis. Fat stomach, yes. Fat ass, no. No.
Jew, are you?
Jew
both. I'm not a Jew. I'm a kike.
Oh, okay.
A yid. So, thank you.
Okay, so next time we'll deal with all these. Yes, the Jews up the app thing, whatever. Yeah, good.
I think that, first of all, it clarified a lot of things for me. I hope that people coming onto this video will get at least, my general hope is that people will get a sense of where you're coming from when you do your videos. Because I think it is a sort of a disclaimer. A very lengthy disclaimer, but it's a disclaimer.
Nobody who criticizes my videos, and I get a lot of criticism, it's either people understand them or they don't. It's okay, which I didn't expect, but okay, you know, fair enough. Nobody who criticizes my videos is going to have the patience to sit through these hour and a half, 2 hours to listen to me. You know, it's okay. That's, you know, if you don't like them, don't watch them. It's fine. Not a problem.
You would be surprised how much time people are willing to spend to see someone they agree with, but even more so, someone who they disagree with.
Really? When I look at someone talks about someone famous and their opinions, and usually when I disagree with them, I'm just kind of like, I'm bored. I don't care. I've heard it all before. It doesn't matter. The same with someone I agree with. It's the same thing. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Okay, so let's meet next
By the
time.
way, there is something people, Johnny hate God. I love the chat window. The chat window is always the best thing in the video. So, again, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome, and we'll talk in a few days. We'll do this again.
Yeah, so Shabbat Shalom to you,
Shabbat Shalom.
all the people watching, and I really, really had fun. Really, it was great. We need to do it again, and we will, because we have to. I have like that many questions. Almost as long as my dick.
I was going to say, maybe that's the fat ass he thinks I have. Okay, talk to you later.
Peace, love.